So we're officially about a week into the 2025 summer update, and I think it's fair to say that opinions are mixed. Nothing too out of the ordinary content-wise, just another batch of the same old. But within those boundaries lies probably the most experimental update we've gotten in years. Bending norms in the name of added novelty is always going to be controversial. Longtime TF2 players are going to have their guard up right out of the gate. Fortunately for this video, I don't trust the opinions of TF2 players on anything ever, so I get to give you all the 100% undeniably correct takes on every piece of content added without a lick of bias clouding my judgment. And I gotta admit, I think this is the weakest of the 3 summer updates we've gotten so far. Honestly, I don't even think it's that close. Hopefully you'll understand where I'm coming from by the end of the video, but for now, let's run through the maps. Citadel, the first payload map in the game to use a tank for a payload cart and allow you to build level 3 sentries on top of it. Surprisingly, this mechanic isn't as bad as you'd think it is, at least in a vacuum. Because of how large a radius the sentry guns cover, the map is designed to be exceptionally big, giving the defending team ample opportunity to knock out the sentries from range. It's an obvious balancing mechanism, but one that presents blatant issues. Citadel is forced into being a very loose map, with long flank routes, massive sight lines, and some of the highest verticality in the game. If it wasn't, the mobile sentries would be too powerful. This means a lot of looking up and a lot of bullshit sniper sight lines, which you can obscure via the tank's hitbox similarly to Frontier, but with how much height advantage Red is given, the back of the tank gets easily spammed out. To combat this, you'll often see a flurry of engineers spamming energy balls while using the tank as an infinite metal generator. So you got short circuit spam on one side and sightlines from Africa on the other. Yeah, no thanks. Even putting map design to the side, the centerpiece of the map, the tank itself, is extremely buggy. You're constantly getting pushed off the top of it for what feels like no reason at all, and I even found myself getting stuck in my sentry a couple of times. And, just like in Man vs. Machine, they'll kill you if you get smushed in between a wall, and there are no easy tells to figure out when and where that'll happen. I actually think Citadel is way more balanced than people give it credit for, but balance and fun are not the same thing. I've tried avoiding the objective to just run around and kill people, but the flank routes take so long that finding 1v1s without eventually coalescing around the tank is a challenge by itself. And that makes sense. If nobody focuses the objective, mobile sentries start getting built, and that makes the game no fun for the red team. I really went into this map wanting to like it, and credit where credit's due, I definitely see the effort in trying to mitigate how oppressive the carded level 3s could be. But I think this is just a concept that's fundamentally flawed. Either you make a small map where sentries are an overly oppressive obstacle, or you make a large map but the teams are spread out too thin and can't deviate from the objective that much. The novelty wears off very fast, and by the end, I just want to go back to normal payload. D tier. Aquarius. Ah yes, the only thing TF2 players hate more than mobile sentries. Taking a bath. That's right, Aquarius now holds the title of the moistest map in TF2. Over half of the map is spent fighting underwater, with a few added perks to make it more bearable. Every class is given a permanent speed boost while submerged, and you never have to pop your head up for breath. Surprise, surprise, some classes benefit more than others from these changes. Projectile classes like Soldier and Demo are in permanent airshot mode, flamethrowers are defunct, so now every pyro's a shark, headshotting becomes a lot more difficult as sniper, and spies need to account for another movement dimension when going in for stabs. When underwater, hit scan is what you need, and everyone very quickly figured out who the king was. Heavy on Aquarius is fucking broken. Probably the single most oppressive map class combo in the entire game. You're running around with non-stop speed boosts, you rarely ever need to unrev, you're the tankiest class in the game, the other hit scan classes need to fight from your max ramp up range, and your two biggest weaknesses, spies and snipers, are nowhere to be seen. It feels like this map was made with the sole intention of farming strange annihilators and getting that one heavy achievement that nobody actually has. Like Citadel, I think this is a map that's just dead on arrival design-wise. And that's not even mentioning just how awful it is to navigate through. Aquarius to me is akin to stuff like Daggert Keep. fun while everyone's shit-faced on Discord at 3 AM, and talkative community environments do help make the map's eccentricities more enjoyable, but will it be in my rotation next week? No, probably not. Boardwalk. One of the more sleeper maps this update. I guess not breaking tradition that much will do it to you. Personally, I like tradition, and Boardwalk is one of the best examples of a modern-day TF2 map. The scale of the map is perfect, the flanks are solid but not overly necessary, sightlines are a non-issue, multiple ways to get to the point, a decent amount of good but not too good midpoint cover, conveyor belts up top that give spies more momentum when going for drop stabs while discouraging above-ground sticky spam. Boardwalk is just very unique in how much it tries to do in such a tiny enclosed area, but almost all of it is done exceedingly well. It's really a shame how much attention has been given to the spawn room carnival games above all else. This map has a lot going for it beyond that. The only thing I'd change about the map are the crocodile pits in the middle. I'd say relocate them somewhere else or just remove them entirely. They're a hazard that really restricts player movement around the objective, and yeah, that's the goal, but I think it's a needless limitation that doesn't add anything of value. It's just muscle memory at this point for players to juke projectiles while playing the objective. This being the one place in the game where you can't do that on autopilot is kind of annoying. But that nitpick aside, I think Boardwalk is one of the best maps of the update, and on par with a lot of the greats from years past. If the croc pits weren't there, I'd be happy to give it an A, but for now, a very strong B. Manhole. Definitely one of the more spammy King of the Hill maps for sure. Despite having a whole tunnel system underlying the map, no one elects to use it over holding down the fort. The height disadvantage or risk of random ambushings are too high a penalty. This leads to everyone gathering around the point while lopping projectiles from the floor or splashes from the perch. There's a lot of chaotic fun to be had in these moments, and thankfully, there aren't any terrible sightlines to ruin the fun. But such is the problem with many maps that feel tight. My main complaint with Manhole is the linearity around the objective. There really isn't much turf to move around on, and the pathways up from the low ground are very thin and easily spammed out. There's a good chance that once you're on the pavement, you become the pavement. And instead of getting dirty in the rat caves, everyone would just rather stack power classes and AFK on the point. Maps that incentivize a more brute force team composition can often be very polarizing, and Manhole is no different. But in the end, I think the mid-fights are entertaining enough to keep it out of the low zone. We'll go C tier. Fulgur. Fulgur has one big problem, and that problem is being big. It doesn't start off too bad. The area around the first point plays pretty well, though there really should be a staircase on the most left flank. Accidentally falling down here is a death knell, but outside of that, no real complaints. The moment you make your way into the interior, though, is where the map just kinda changes for me. Am I the only one who feels like I just got transported to Tiny Huge Island from walking these staircases? You could fit the entirety of both teams in like one filler corridor. It's too fucking big, man. Just walking around the map as any class besides Scout feels like you're dragging a 50-pound bag of potatoes through a quicksand river. I get that attack-defend maps can be way too choky. Dust Bowl is definitely an acquired taste, and if someone released it in 2025, it'd be publicly mocked, so I do understand wanting to prevent an outcome like that, but this is just too much, man. The final point also doesn't have the same heft that a lot of other maps do. Everything is so open that it just feels impossible to cover everything at once on defense. And even then, the final point is just begging for a little balcony. Just a small area to let soldiers and snipers lay on the pressure from above. Fulgur feels like you could scale everything down by like 10 to 15%, and the pacing would be so much better. Besides that, the map doesn't have any glaring issues. I don't dread queuing into it at all, but I'm not as uppity on this map as the rest of you are. It's like a low C tier. Cargo. I've seen people describe this map as Gorge-esque, and I don't see the comparison. Just because a map has shipping containers and a giant hole for an endpoint doesn't make the two comparable. I wish it did, because Gorge is one of my favorite maps in the entire game. Cargo, on the other hand, is just kind of alright. I find the first point and the branching pathways surrounding it to be very enjoyable to fight on. There's a good balance of open and and closed off areas with a very powerful right flank that keeps the snipers at bay. This doesn't really apply to the last point all that much, but there is a giant fence that blocks all sightlines, projectile spam, and last resort melee plays. Might seem like a futile obstacle, but it really does do the job. On the gameplay front, I think it's a tad underrated actually, but this is where my personal subjectivity comes into play. I just really don't like the way that Cargo looks. I'm not even like a hardcore art style Andy or anything. I have zero issue with the way that most of the modern maps look. But Cargo is just way too drab, and there's an over-reliance on a bunch of dull grays without much in the way of contrast. The actual gameplay of Cargo is mostly a good time, but it's one of those maps that I don't like playing purely because I just don't enjoy looking at it. It's another C tier. Conifer. Now here's a map that ticks those visual boxes for me. Definitely the comfiest map of the update. There's something about the uneven terrain and old gravel pit aesthetic that really give off an authentically imperfect vibe, up to and including the narrow-ass Dust Bowl cave flanks. Christ, take some of Fulgur's openness and drag it here. The first point of the map is relatively linear, but spam isn't too dominant to the point of being an issue. The last point is where things start to become more of a problem, forcing you onto another low ground into another giant pit. Yes, I know I said it wasn't that big of a deal for Cargo, but Conifers actually got people fragging all over the map, covering the left flank, right flank, bottom flank outside of spawn, sniper shooting from the helicopter. You're getting forced into an omnidirectional gangbang, and that ain't fun. So, not a perfect map by any means, but the more I've started farming the red team spawn while my team's rushing in for the cap, the more things started clearing up for me. You really do need people keeping the red team incapacitated to make any progress on last at all. Zerging last and praying isn't gonna work here. Over time, I think more people will become aware of that, and as they do, the map will become more fun. So while my first impressions of the map were a bit on the low end, as the week has gone on, my opinions have tempered a little bit. It's like a low B tier. Demolition. This is the worst fucking map I've ever played in my life. I'm not kidding. This is the worst map they've ever put in the game. They literally took a single control point, surrounded it with a death pit, put a sticky spam tower right next to it, and added flank routes so tight they would make Junction blush. The control point is half the fucking map. You walk outside of spawn and it's cappable within 3 seconds. And the way they try to balance it is by locking off the main entrance whenever you're the defending team. So your reward for playing the objective is more downtime when you die. The map has a bottom flank too, but nobody fucking uses it because you immediately get railed the moment you poke your head out. And no shit that'll happen. The entire enemy team is stacked within the radius of a fucking amputator taunt. Also, this island over here, why does it exist? It's just another perch for sticky spam and fuck all else. You can't even build anything here. What's the point? If you wanted to provide a catch-up mechanism for the losing team, how about a drawbridge that plops down onto the island? It might not be good, but neither is traveling 10 miles per hour through shitty hallways the size of 2 player models. Not only that, the map spawns you in facing a door that leads to a wall. There's an entrance to the flank route, sure, but there's one right here too. And it's closer to the side door. Why do I have to make a 90-degree turn every time I spawn back in? Like, what the fuck? You made the smallest map in the entire game and somehow still found a way to make part of it useless. Oh, and let's not even talk about the deluge of loose cannon demos and Force of Nature scouts and air blasting monkey pyros that make the main point feel like one of those shitty Mario Party minigames. I'm starting to see why they call it the offshore update, guys. To me, this map just embodies, like, every worst element of TF2. From polarizing height advantages to enclosed projectile spam with no counterplay, to bullshit one-shove kills encompassing half the map, to being punished with artificial downtime for owning the point. Like, what the fuck? I'm still not over that. I get it, it's necessary to prevent team caps from setting up a permanent spawn camp while waiting for a respawn wave. I get it, but I think when we're reaching the point where that is a problem that needs solving, you probably gotta go back to the drawing board. I know some of you actually enjoy this map in like a sick, twisted way. Good for you. I don't. Pressure. So, Capture the Flag maps have historically had the worst track record among all TF2 game modes, and I don't think Pressure has quite avoided that plague. In my opinion, Pressure's biggest problem is entirely down to the spawn rooms autopiloting players into the intel room. Reaching the intel was already difficult enough for an invading player, and depending on what side that sentry is set up on, it can either be very easy to break through or practically impossible. But now, you have to constantly deal with the opposing team just randomly butt-fucking you from behind because the map doesn't point you in any definitive path towards mid. Getting snuck up on while going for the intel isn't anything new, but it happens at a much higher frequency on Pressure, easily more than any other CTF map in the game. The linear tunnels don't help either, you're not evading splashes here. Where Pressure gets even more polarizing are the underwater flanks. They're way too good for flag capping. Yeah, maybe I shouldn't be complaining about an easy ride home after needing to check my back every 5 seconds like a shitty game of FNAF, but they're just too good. Nobody's down there, nobody wants to go down there, and if for whatever reason you die, nobody wants to camp the briefcase while constantly needing to scrounge for health to avoid drowning. So, from a playing the objective point of view, it's a really bad map. But from a DM point of view, it isn't terrible. The multiple branching pathways can make for some fun CQC fights, and the middle area is sufficient, which is high praise for a CTF map, but there are much better game modes to casually muck about and farm kills on. If I can say anything, I do think Pressure has the best vibe of all the maps though. It really does radiate a cozy 4 AM community aura where you could just hang out with like 9 people and not focus on the game at all. But as a playable map in the game Team Fortress 2, it just isn't something I want to come back to. D tier. Blowout. The best map of the update in my opinion. Easily, without question. This one came as a shock to me because I remember seeing footage of it early on and it didn't seem appealing to me at all. Man, oh man, oh man. I was wrong. Every class is enjoyable to play as, sightlines aren't oppressive at all, and the lower level acting as a risky flight to safety, be it by grabbing a medkit or by retreating through the lower route, creates an environment where both teams are chasing each other around every corner of the map. Like everyone is flanking each other back to back to back to back. It's like the TF2 equivalent of folding dough onto itself. Every part of this map is enjoyable to fight on while still having the objective easily in reach. Just all around, a really well designed map. And not only that, but well designed in a way that other Koth maps just aren't. You don't even get these massive team fights at mid with how much the map disperses each player. You're constantly getting into a lot of smaller interactions, a lot of 1v1s or 1v2s, and the point cap is merely a treat for the team that wins more of them. Spawn camping is also a fool's errand, which only further consolidates players around mid to keep the action going. I don't know what else to say. Blowout is a blowout. This should be the quality standard for what all other maps set out to do. I wouldn't quite call it S tier, but a strong A tier for sure. Great map. Overall, I think it's fair to say I'm disappointed this time around. To me, a lot of these maps are more fashion over form, built on foundational premises that I think make them a lot more polarizing than a TF2 map really ought to be. It feels like Valve are trying to offer the most unique content possible and doesn't realize that isn't synonymous with quality. Like, don't get me wrong, it's great for us YouTubers. We get to make videos with overly exaggerated adjectives to get those numbers up. Subscribe, by the way. But when actually applied in game, the shelf life for these types of maps usually isn't very long. Also, the matchmaker just straight up broke during day 2 of the update, so Valve are gonna have to address this map bloat issue eventually. This year's Scream Fortress is gonna have over 180 maps in rotation. Get ready for that. The problem is even worse than you think, by the way. Look out for next week's MVM video. Trust me, they're related. By all means, if Aquarius ends up having a player bar as long as upwards a month from now, I'll eat my words. But I don't really believe that prioritizing novelty over longevity is going to bode well in the long term. Maybe I'm wrong. I guess we'll have to wait and see. As for cosmetics, I wish I could be cool and hipster and have opinions that people might question me on to facilitate curiosity in the viewer, but no. My opinions on these are the same as everybody else's. The medic set is obviously the best, the scout set is a fine runner-up, the all-class elite grade ball cap is cool, new soldier hair and spy ties are solid additions, if not a bit redundant, the Disco Elysium set for heavy is way too bulky and makes him look like kind of a goofball, the sniper coat was way too muted, shout out to the creator for fixing fixing it. And no, we don't need another Demo Man beanie. I basically just gave you the ChatGPT summary of what the consensus seems to be, and I can't say that I disagree with much of it at all. Taunts, on the other hand, seem to be well above average compared to prior years. The final score is an alright passive-aggressive taunt. I think other ones fit that niche a bit better, but this will probably have some fun community server interactions with it. Flying Colors is a celebratory victory animation. I don't think we've seen any of those yet, so it's a pretty decent addition. My e-girl pocket medics who farm me for kill feed clout can finally get a warm embrace at the end of a round. The bear hug's a bit goofy, but ultimately it's pretty harmless. The real talk of the town though is the Texas trick shot. The first community-made taunt ever to have a taunt kill attached to it. People immediately started bitching that TF2 is now pay to win or something, so they nerfed the attack range of the kill. But then everyone started bitching about the nerf, so Valve reverted it back the next day. Someday you'll return, my friend. Someday. To be real, I do not have one molecule in my body that cares about this discussion one way or the other. The only time you'll ever be getting hit by this is during pre-game setup when everyone's scratching their ass. Take it, leave it, I don't care. But now that Valve have opened the floodgates for allowing taunt kills in the game, get ready to see a lot more of them hit the workshop. It's an inevitability at this point. As for unusual effects, all I can really say is thank God there are less of them. Summer 2024 chucked 38 different unusual effects into the game, which is ludicrous overkill that nobody wanted or needed. This year, we got a 63% reduction with only 14 added to the game. I was originally gonna joke around and shoo away every unusual effect on principle as a clear way of illustrating that I think we're good on not needing any more of them, but then Valve decided to add the fully charged effect into the game, and it's one of the coolest effects we've gotten in years. I don't even enjoy dignifying these with a compliment because I don't want to validate this ever-increasing scale of particle bloat that we keep getting. But when you add stuff like this into the game, I can't not praise it. These are great. Ideally, the number of unusual effects they continue to add into the game from here is 0. But if you're gonna make it higher than 0, please add more like this. As for the miscellaneous bug fixes, we didn't get much outside of Saxton Hale improvements, which is definitely a shame. Usually we get a big batch of them for the base game around this point in time. We did, however, get a much welcome addition, decreasing the map vote timer at the end of a round by 50%. Yes, a lot of people still immediately leave the moment the game ends, but there were absolutely chunks of players that would dip out during the latter half of the map votes being tallied. And now, those players who would have otherwise left are remaining in the game, filling up servers faster for everybody going into the following game. It's a small change, but definitely one I think everyone appreciates. Hopefully this isn't the only downtime eliminating quality of life patch that we see. I have a feeling it won't be. Generally speaking, it seems like my thoughts on the summer update are a lot more negative than most of yours. In fact, the last viewer poll I did seems to confirm as much. I've been at the point for a while now where I wish that Valve would ship smaller, more compact updates and prune out 70% of the fluff. But realistically, I have zero faith that Valve would pick the 30% that I believe is best for the game long term. At this point, I believe the best thing to do is give the new summer and Christmas editions the same seasonality as Scream Fortress. Let the player base marinate in them for a month, and then pick and choose what gets added to the base game later on, based on player metrics and community feedback. Because we gotta be honest, we are fucking bloated beyond belief, and it's only gonna get worse if Valve don't show any restraint. Remember when Cactus Canyon and Asteroid were in a playable beta state for who knows how long, and still never made their way into the base game? It isn't like this is historically unprecedented or anything. The best example of this, I think, was last year's Christmas update, where we got 4 maps ported into the game: Penguin Peak, Overcast, Forteza, and Patagonia. Penguin Peak is just a reskin of Pelican Peak, which is already in the fucking rotation. Overcast is one of the most disliked maps in recent memory, even ignoring the controversy around its creation, and I have yet to meet one player who's high on Forteza. Patagonia, by contrast, is a fantastic map. One of the best maps of the entire 2020s era. It may be anecdotal, but everyone I've talked to who has played the map extensively only has nice things to say about it. Wouldn't it be nice if we could just get that one map and a few good summer ones every year and let that play out for a while? It seems like that would be a much more stable, long-term model. I guess that's what disappoints me most about summer 2025. It isn't bucking a trend at a time where I don't know how much longer we can go without bucking it. There's always the escape hatch of simply removing maps from the pool, but there's no evidence that Valve would ever go in that direction, barring the removal of like old school arena maps and the like. Once something is in the game for a long period of time, Valve doesn't want to upset anybody by taking it out. It's like handing somebody $20 and then taking it back a month later. Sure, you're not worse off than you were a month ago, but it's still a kick in the dick. That being said, I want to know what you guys think. Evidently, it seems like my opinion is the minority here, so I'm curious to read your thoughts. Also, I know the MVM update announcement was a month ago and I still haven't commented on it. I'll be covering it very, very soon. Trust me. Anyways, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to drop a like, sub, or whatever. Twitter, Discord, and second channel are in the description, and that's all I got. See ya.